Every so often, a film comes along that doesn't just challenge you, it tests you. Bugonia, the latest collaboration between Yorgos Lanthimos and Emma Stone, isn't just a movie. It's a psychological labyrinth, part sci-fi, part tragedy, and part mirror held up to our fractured world. If Poor Things was about creation and curiosity, Bugonia is about destruction and belief. It's a remake of Jong Joon-won's 2003 Korean cult classic Save the Green Planet, but Lanthimos transforms it into something uniquely his own, a haunting fable about alienation, obsession, and the unbearable loneliness of the digital age. In this deep dive, we'll unpack the full story, explore its symbolism, decode that jaw-dropping ending, and reveal how Bugonia might be Lanthimos' most terrifyingly human film yet. Let's begin where it all starts, in the quiet hum of a dying hive. The film opens on Teddy Gatz, played by Jesse Plemons, a man who seems ordinary at first glance. He lives on a small farm with his cousin Dawn. Aidan Delbis, a gentle soul on the autism spectrum who relies on Teddy for guidance. The two raise bees together. It's peaceful, almost biblical. But Lanthimos shoots these scenes with a quiet tension, the kind that tells you something is very, very wrong. In their small farmhouse, surrounded by screens, radio static, and cluttered notebooks, Teddy spends every night down an internet rabbit hole, obsessing over alien conspiracies and global manipulation. He's convinced that the world is being controlled by an alien race known as the Andromedans, disguised as human elites. And his proof? Political corruption, environmental collapse, pandemics, all he believes orchestrated by them. Teddy's descent into obsession feels disturbingly real. He's not shouting in all caps on social media. He's quiet, calm, articulate, the kind of man who sounds rational until you listen too closely. And he's decided to do something about it. His target? Michelle Fuller, played by Emma Stone, a pharmaceutical CEO who, in his mind, is the key to everything. Teddy convinces Dawn to help him carry out a mission, to kidnap Michelle and save the planet. What unfolds next feels like a Yorgos Lanthimos fever dream, a kidnapping sequence that's both darkly comic and deeply disturbing. Michelle, the picture of corporate confidence, is ambushed after her Krav Maga training session and dragged to Teddy's basement. It's filmed almost like a grotesque ballet, messy, clumsy, but painfully real. Once she's restrained, Teddy's rituals begin. He shaves her head, claiming her hair acts as an antenna to the alien hive. He coats her in white ointment to block her powers, and then he begins the interrogation. What's brilliant here is that Michelle, despite being the prisoner, exudes dominance. Even in chains, she's composed, analytical, almost amused by Teddy's theories. But slowly, she realizes that reason won't work. So she does the unthinkable. She starts to play along. From here, Bugonia transforms into a psychological war zone. Michelle begins to manipulate Teddy's belief system from the inside, giving him just enough validation to feel he's on the verge of a breakthrough. She asks questions, feigns curiosity, plays the role of a cooperative alien in order to survive. But the more she plays along, the more Teddy unravels. And Dawn, innocent, impressionable Dawn, becomes the audience's mirror. He doesn't fully believe Teddy, but he trusts him. He wants to belong. His moral conflict deepens as the situation spirals. Lanthimos captures this with uncomfortable intimacy, close-ups that linger too long, silences that suffocate, eyes that twitch with fear and guilt. At times, the film almost dares us to laugh, but every chuckle catches in the throat. Because the truth is, we recognize these people. We know this kind of obsession. We live in a world where it thrives. As the lunar eclipse approaches, the supposed date of alien contact, Teddy grows more desperate. He starts seeing patterns everywhere, in news reports, in weather patterns, even in Dawn's behavior.
He's convinced Michelle is sending signals to the Andromedans. Don begins to question everything. In a heartbreaking moment, he asks, "What if we're wrong?" Teddy looks at him and says, "Then we'll be the first to know the truth." That line is chilling because it's not defiance, it's faith. Meanwhile, Michelle's strategy shifts. She starts using empathy. She tells Teddy she understands his pain, that she's lost people too, that maybe he's right, maybe humanity is doomed. And that's when she strikes emotionally. She tells him she can take him to the Emperor during the eclipse if he just follows her instructions. By this point, we're unsure who's manipulating whom. Has Michelle broken him down? Or is she now playing into the madness herself? Then comes the night of the eclipse. The moon turns red, the sky crackles, and for the first time, the world outside seems to respond. Lights flicker, electronics malfunction, the air vibrates with an unnatural hum. Teddy believes the mothership is coming. Don begs him to stop. Michelle sits silently, watching them both, unreadable, almost serene. Then everything goes wrong. Without spoiling the graphic detail, the scene ends in chaos. Violence, fire, and a moment that could be interpreted as either supernatural or a psychological collapse. In the final moments, Teddy's eyes widen in awe, as if he sees something beyond comprehension. We hear a deafening sound, like the roar of 1,000 wings, and then...
So, what actually happened? The ending of Bugonia is deliberately ambiguous, but there are three major interpretations. One, the psychological reading. Everything was in Teddy's mind. The alien invasion was a metaphor for the invasion of paranoia, how misinformation and grief can colonize a person's thoughts until they lose themselves. In this reading, the eclipse scene is his final psychotic break, the moment his delusion consumes him completely. 2. The cosmic reading. The aliens were real. Michelle really was one of them, and Teddy's madness was the tragic lens through which humanity finally glimpsed the truth. In that case, the final sound, that swarm-like roar, might literally be the arrival of the Andromedans. 3. The metaphorical reading, and perhaps Lanthimos' true intent. It doesn't matter whether the aliens exist, because we've already become them. Lanthimos uses the alien metaphor to explore the dehumanization of modern life, where technology, capitalism, and ideology have turned us into alien versions of ourselves. Michelle, the corporate machine. Teddy, the conspiratist. Don, the passive observer. Each represents a different fragment of a society that no longer communicates, only consumes, only reacts, only believes what confirms its fears. The hive has lost its queen. The swarm is devouring itself. And that's the real horror of Bugonia. Let's talk about the symbolism. The bees are the most obvious metaphor, creatures of perfect order and interdependence. Teddy reveres them because they represent what humanity has lost. Their slow extinction mirrors our own collapse. The ointment he smears on Michelle's skin resembles both honey and glue, a symbol of purity turned suffocating. The shaved head strips away identity, transforming Michelle into something both vulnerable and inhuman, a blank slate for Teddy's delusions. And the eclipse? It's the merging of light and shadow, the meeting of truth and madness, the moment when the world stands still and everything feels possible or doomed. Visually, Lanthimos and cinematographer Robbie Ryan use wide, static compositions to trap the characters, framing them like insects in a jar. When violence erupts, the camera suddenly moves, shaky, handheld, chaotic, mimicking the breakdown of order in Teddy's mind. At its heart, Bugonia isn't really about aliens. It's about belief, and how belief, when untethered from empathy, becomes a weapon. Teddy believes he's saving the world, but he's really destroying it.
Michelle believes she's untouchable, and her arrogance creates the monster that captures her. And Don, tragically, believes in love, and that belief destroys him most of all. It's a story about the collapse of communication, the death of reason, and the dangers of needing certainty in a world built on chaos. Lanthimos doesn't give us answers. He gives us a mirror, and what we see reflected back is terrifyingly familiar. Bugonia isn't an easy watch. It's brutal, bizarre, and occasionally unbearable, but that's exactly why it matters. It's about us, our fear, our isolation, our desperate search for meaning in a hive that's falling apart. And like all great Lanthimos films, it asks the hardest question of all. When the madness finally comes, will we even recognize it? If you enjoyed this breakdown, leave a like, subscribe, and tell me your theory in the comments. Was Teddy insane or right all along? Thanks for watching.